2026, and you are in the right place. If you came here for the Intellinet Network Solution January webinar, you are in 100% of the right place. Don and I are here to welcome you in, um, and we're going to help you connect with us. You know, connecting great people with even better products is really what we're trying to do here. One of the big things, though, that we're going to try to do is educate a little bit about where 1 gig um, has been, and more importantly, why 2.5 gig and 10 gig switches are out. Um, I got to tell you, I love doing these. I'm hoping that you all get something from this as well. One of the big reasons why we're trying to do this is trying to understand the everyday installer, providing key SKUs that will work. But it kind of led me down a path. I came into this with a really big assumption that everybody needed to go to 10 gig. And I've always thought when I've looked at a house, of course I look inside, but I also sometimes look the majority of the time outside. And when I look inside, I'm looking at that home theater room. I'm looking at a variety of different things. I think one of the big things that's going to stand out right now is the need for multi-layered networks, so kind of transposing. But look, it led me to a New Year's resolution to look at things differently, think things through at a full 360 degrees. But that's my professional New Year's resolution to probably look a little bit deeper and to look beyond what my natural assumptions are towards something. So we've got some great attendees that are out there. Tyrone, thank you for joining, and a handful of you others that are out. Don, one of the big things that I'd love, what's the big resolution for you this year? It's okay if it's peanut butter pretzels. I'm a fan too.
This year for IT wise, it
Yeah,
is kind of um, focusing on the threats that are out there right now. So a lot of threats are very different, but the fundamentals are the same. So focusing on the fundamentals when we're doing IT, making sure you have solid passwords, essentially making sure you're not making it easy for someone else to get into a system, and then making sure you have well-educated users. So I think with that, 90% of cybersecurity problems will be kind of out the door.
I just read it was a Middle Eastern country in the last 3 weeks, um, and something kind of small, but maybe not so small. Literally, access into so when pilots get ready to fly, they file a flight plan mission that's out there, and all that gets recorded on a server. Well, the password to the server literally was admin. That's how
Yeah,
they got in, and so they knew that flights were taking off and where they were going, and then put this up, ethically put this up online so you could see the full flight manifest of, this is it's Bob, and Bob's going to be taken off at 2:30. Well, and
yeah.
all because somebody had a password of admin. Just, oh my
That's a really
goodness.
big one, because right now there's automated scrapers. So I was setting something up for my church about a week ago, and before I even had the website done for them, it was like a shared desktop. So everybody in the church, we have like four ministers across the country, they could all log into the same virtual computer, do their
Yep.
work, and then everybody can share. But before I even got this set up, I was using very similar framework. We started getting SSH attempts. So I've changed it now. I haven't put anything exciting on there yet. But yeah, like the Louvre was another big one. The Louvre password was Louvre1. But yeah, once you really look at it, admin is probably the worst. Password is a close second, and then 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 or 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Between those three, there's a lot of cybercrime groups that just kind of go look for things that they can attack and then attack them, and it's all automated. So
Yeah.
that's why when I was building that website for the church, before 30 minutes passed, I didn't even get my lunch break. And on like a Saturday, I was working on it, and before Saturday at noon, that script already found it. So yeah,
Amazing.
definitely the fundamentals of just making sure you're following the best practices.
Well, I'll talk to you a little bit. Give me a couple of slides. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I came to my New Year's resolution and some of the things that were going on. One of the big things though, Don, I think that customers are going to appreciate, and those that are joining us today, either on the rewind and the rewatch or, wherever else, if you're new to the channel, and listening, one of the big things that we try to talk about is relevant stuff. Here at Intellinet, overall IC Intercom, you have rightfully pointed out earlier this morning was Manhattan, but we provide those products for daily use, and it's a bunch of really great SKUs. Now, one of the things that you and I try to do is demystify a little bit key SKUs for installer. And we've got that on this webinar where we're going to give you just some things that we know that you're going to habitually purchase, and use to form that backbone. But those backbone products, are literally a part of just the daily installation needs. And what you'll find is that if you'll adopt a little bit more into those, Intellinet today enables installers to do about 90% of the active and passive networking needs from a single brand. And it's a brand that you can trust. We do this in a variety of different ways, both online and at brick and mortar. Wherever it is that you're looking to gain products, we've got it there, and that reduces the complexity. And if you need something in a pinch, I'm getting, as soon as I'm done here, Don, I'm gonna go buy an injector. You got deep into my head about that high speed, or I'm sorry, about projecting over to the barn. So I'm going to go grab an injector, and we're going to try to bring some additional coverage through. But what I love here is that reliability, quality, and overall support. And you'll find this in a variety of different avenues. We're really well known. Internally, we talk about being the PoE people. They're PoE people. But we've got a whole wide range, and we're going to get into talking about that on power over Ethernet, as well as dedicated switches that are there. Kind of the lesser known categories, for us, but just equally as strong is if you're looking for really good fiber optic patch cables, we've got that, as well. Cat 5, Cat 6, Cat 6A, and even Cat 8, patch panels are really, really important. In fact, this is where I'm going. You've heard me talk about the fact that on my switches, I ran Cat 8, patch cables, and I got to see exactly where some of the strength of my network was, and then more honestly, where some of the bottlenecking was going through. So patch panels, racks, cabinets, if you're doing all of this, we want to give you a great place to be able to store that. And then more importantly, while your installation's going on, we also have tools and testers for network installation, that's out. So one of the big things that we're here to do today is talk a lot about 2.5 gig and 10 gig, switches, and really where things are at. It's changed so much, right now in terms of modern network design for pro installers. And I talked a little bit about this, Don, there, and then I'm going to make the big admission to you, coming through. When I set this system up, I'm in a brand new house in North Texas. I had set the system up thinking about my PoE cameras outside. We've got a total of six, that are running. Actually, I shouldn't admit that because now people are like, no, 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 we got all six cameras. But I have six cameras on the inside. We're doing a total of six dedicated access points, four inside, two outside, there. And then I wanted to prioritize, because of the PoE capability, I wanted to prioritize really good wired networking inside the house with dedicated access. It's great. And then my home theater also has hard wiring. My office has got hard wiring as well. The one thing that I hadn't considered was everything else that was going on inside the house, the amount of devices that, connect to each other. So the big reason why that came up, Don, I don't know about you, out in Oldsmar, but we're about to get like really cold. And this is one of those areas where I wish I could go back to the realtor and say, none of this was in the brochure. It just, in Texas, you think tumbleweeds, right? You think hard packed dirt, you think horses, you think cowboys. I never once thought that I'd be talking to you about 9 degrees. And on Saturday, we're going to get down to 9 degrees, which, if you followed Texas in the cold, we don't do real well. So I'm anticipating right now that the network's going to go down, because probably the power is going to go down over the weekend. So one of the big things where I clued in literally as I'm writing this presentation is I've got to be able to set up a Plex server, and I've got to be able to set up not just strong internet, but stronger intranet. And all of a sudden now, from my office, I'm moving to my rack where I've got a centralized NAS set up, and I'm moving movies, I'm moving content, so that in the event that things go offline, I'm able to set it up. And because I had set up with Cat 8 panels, or I'm sorry, patch panels, I'm already in a better spot because I had run premium cable. I was in a better spot. And so initially the take was I was going to talk to you about 10G. Hey, you gotta move to 10 gig because everybody's moving to 10 gig. And the reality is that if you're moving today at a gig, you could probably go to 2.5 gig there, but 10 gig still has a spot, and that's for the intranet, the devices talking to one another in a big way. So let's talk a little bit about upgrading that backbone and where things are going. Look, I can't encourage you enough that if you're still doing legacy 1 gig networks, it's time to move. Please, 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 please move to 2.5 gig and 10 gig switching solutions. We're here just in terms of access points. You really need to take a look at, what's going on. We're transitioning today from Wi-Fi 6 to Wi-Fi 7. And if you're watching the news just less than a week old out of CES, there's a huge move over to, and standards are already being drafted right now for Wi-Fi 8 that are out there. But we want to take a look at what's going on for Wi-Fi 7. In addition to that, the industry, if you're here from a CEDIA, Pro AV, or even security, AV over IP is becoming a really, really big deal. And we want to help you take advantage of that, as well as security systems. The other thing too is that the practicality of scaling from 1G to 2.5 and making that move today of, hey, it's 2026, we're not going to do anything that's not at least a minimum at 2.5 gig. It makes it really difficult to scale for you. It makes it really difficult to scale. The other advantage is if you'll tap into PoE++, if you'll tap into a minimum of PoE, is we can give you not only a reliable network, but more importantly, high speed with better power demands that are there, because all you got to do is set up a UPS. And even if the power goes down, we're still going to be able to keep your network up and running on a variety of different deals. So I told you about an agenda. We're going to talk to you a little bit about network changes and kind of the evolution of where this has gone on. We'll talk to you about 2.5 gig use cases, PoE++, and 10 gig scalability, why that's important, and then more importantly, talk to you about some of those installer tools and the dedicated support. So let's talk about the market changes and the current customer installation challenges that are out there. Wade, it's really good to see you. Thank you for joining as well. Tyrone, let us know if we can answer any questions for you that are there. So I mentioned a little bit, if you know me from past lives, we've talked a lot about Wi-Fi 6, and now more importantly with Wi-Fi 7, there's much more demand and throughput that's pushing through networks. I had a fascinating discussion though with Verkada. ANI enabled camera system are absolutely incredible with what you can do here, but there's an increase in bandwidth. More importantly, there's an increase in overall power requirements, and that's going to impact the overall network load. Now, an area that we're starting to see a lot of adoption to is AV over IP, and that can put a strain on a traditional 1G network. So all this adds up to you've got a need. Your customers today, whether they're expressing it or not, are inadvertently telling you that, look, you've got to move to multi-gigabit solutions that are out there. Now, it's more than just where the industry is evolving to. It's the challenges today. It's probably one of the biggest areas of concern and where I sit down and start writing out in terms of power density. You know, when you're dealing with PoE, when you're dealing with PoE plus plus, power demands are huge, but it's more than just that. 1G limitation, 1G limitation. If you're running a 1G switch, if you're running poor cabling, you're going to cause bottlenecks, and that's going to reduce the overall performance and slowing data flow, and that's going to result in a callback coming in. The other thing, though, is that you're getting much more advanced camera systems, much more advanced access points that are requiring PoE++, and all of that is asking for multi-gig. And overwhelmingly, our customers aren't concerned. The end customer at the end of the day isn't just concerned about 1G or 2.5. Their single biggest measurement of what it is that they need. They want uptime and they want something that is safe, that's going to meet their client demands, their customers that are taking advantage of it, or more importantly, and most importantly, they're looking for something that's going to be at an affordable area as well as you. We want to help those profit margins again and again and again. And so it gives me an opportunity then to talk to you today about how do we establish, how do we rethink that modern network architecture that's out there. It used to be that we were just talking about, when we talked about Wi-Fi, we talked about download capability. This was something that you used to watch Netflix, or this was something that you used to grab your email. Today, Wi-Fi and today network systems are much more. It's AV, it's security, it's Wi-Fi, and it's control systems. All of that converging right now means that you've got to have a switch capable of traffic prioritization, that you've got to have something that brings in a unified architecture across the board. Now, what do I mean when I talk about unified architecture? Well, one of the big things right now is that, when you add all these things up, when you talk about just legacy 1 gig networks, when you talk about power delivery constraints, when you talk about multi-gig, or I'm sorry, when you talk about those two things, it leads you to a need to really get into multi-gig and upgrading that path. Now, whether you're coming in as a takeover or whether or not you're building an entire brand new network, upgrading to a 2.5 gig, and really I would multi-layer this, of building an external 2.5 gig and an internal 10 gig network that's out there. You can provide bandwidth, but more importantly, on that 2.5 gig today, you can do power, and that's going to give you future-proof installation. One of the big risks, if you're digging your heels up, this is my SKU, this is the product line that we do, it's going to result in a callback. Will it work today? Maybe, probably will work, but it is eventually going to bottleneck and it's going to limit the network performance, which is going to result in that scale back. Now, one of the big things that I'd encourage you to do is to start taking a look at that modern 3-layer network that's out there, where you're talking about edge, aggregation, and your core layers. Now, the core edge capabilities today is going to really be that profit margin that you're looking for with your customers. It's also going to give you that future proof. So at a minimum, when we walk into a home, when we walk into an SMB, I want you thinking about 2.5 gig speed. Your customers are paying for it right now. Maybe they're getting the performance. Hopefully, they're getting the performance out of it. But your customers are already on a path by the end of this year to getting into a 2.5 gig plan with their ISP. When you layer in PoE++, now you're offering some additional opportunities. And not just the traditional ones like access points, but taking advantage of PoE speakers, taking advantage of PoE lighting, and some of those. Now that aggregation layer role, this is something that I'm embarrassed to say that I had missed. When you're doing aggregation switches to manage those 10 gig uplinks, this is what's going to prevent the network bottlenecks and ensure proper data flow. But the big thing that you're doing here is you're involving device to device connections, device to device communication that's out there. And then the last one, and arguably the most important, is that core layer, handling basic routing, handling advanced services, and centralized network control that comes in. But once we start thinking about it from an edge, an aggregation, and a core, all of a sudden we see that need for 2.5 gig and for 10 gig. So let's talk a little bit about the deployment strategies and product positioning. When we come in and we talk with anybody, whether it's the architect that you're planning with or whether it's just the end customer, we want to really begin to talk about PoE++ that's out there. You already know the benefits of PoE, where we're combining power and data over a single cable. But what this is going to do when we get into PoE++, this is going to allow you to get in with your customers and do things that maybe they hadn't even considered. Things like Panda Zoom cameras, stepping up into Wi-Fi 7 access points, both indoor and outdoor. And then more importantly, getting into some of the newest AV equipment, things like getting into the newest AV equipment, where all of a sudden we are talking about lighting. All of a sudden we are talking about other areas. And then the biggest thing here is why PoE++ matters. I don't know how to tell you this, but your power budget today isn't enough because your customers are going to bring you back for at least one more device, maybe two, possible three. And we want to make sure that we're building in for that future capability and for future jobs that are out there. Where you can use 2.5 gig and 10 gig today is extremely important. 2.5 gig is widely used for access points, for cameras, for audio visual. 10 gig today is for the rest of that. This is where those edge switches are going to come into play and supporting on AV racks and for MDF or IDF connection for high bandwidth needs. It's a really, really big area to be able to take advantage of and overall support. So, there's lots of opportunity to standardize on the overall installation, that you can do. And what that allows you to do is set up those repeatable deployments in a big, big way. Repeatable deployments allow you to scale faster. If you standardize on a bunch of different SKUs, this is going to give you that overall capability. All right, so standard residential, how this is going to go through residential gateway, centralized switch, managing for all the home systems that you've got, and then level two. Level two is going to give you that capability right now to take advantage of distributed AV zones and security. The other things that this is going to allow you to do is then in level three, where we're going to get into power distribution, cameras, access points, AV endpoints, and then level four, more importantly, level four is going to give you that future ready capability. All right, from a commercial AV standpoint out there, just making sure I've got a couple of different things indicating I might be offline. Could you all hit that chat box for me just real quick and just making sure that I'm still online with y'all? Or Don, can you hear
You're
me?
still here. I can hear you.
Awesome. Scared
You're
me for a
killing it.
second. Yeah, it scared me for a second. I'm like, everything's going really, really well. I want to make sure I'm all right. So I'm in the zone, but it scared me because I had an hourglass pop up on screen and I'm like, oh my gosh, Optimum, you've done it to me again.
Oh,
Not,
well, I can go down
not,
to your house and unplug cables. It'll make you feel better.
please don't, please don't. I have high speed fiber that literally is at the edge of my block, and I'm hoping by the end of the week, I cannot wait. Out there. All right, so when we talk about commercial AV and security convergence, look, I know that you know these things, but IP cameras talk more about Panda Zoom, the 4K capability, the AI capability, and another huge shout out to Verkada and some of the work that they're doing. Layering that in with video display network, and please, if you're taking a look right now at multi-screen, or if you're looking at some of the really amazing stuff like that Lunar Walls is doing, this is a huge area that you can get into where good switching is going to be important. Wi-Fi is another area for high density deployments, and then finally that centralized AP control. One of the big things though that we continually get questions about is what type of switches should we be doing, and just put together this quick chart for all of you to be able to take a look at those things. So tools, programs, support that are out there. One of the big things that I'm really a fan of from the Intellinet side, take a look. We've actually got some great network testers that are out there, cable connections and things like that. But when you're setting up that toolkit, a network tester should be a big part. Take a look at some of the things that Portal.io and DTools are doing in terms of design software. There's some great training resources up on the CDF pages that are out there that'll help you streamline your overall workflow. And then project standardization. I cannot say this enough. Take a look at your line, reduce your overall line by 30% and watch your profit margins go higher. When you're using the same switch, the same access point, it minimizes the error and it gives you that consistent product performance. And then adopting repeatable architecture. This is one of the, just if it works, it works. stay in it, and continue across. I'm going to get up on my soapbox again just for a quick second, talk about PoE++. You know all the benefits of PoE, but this is going to give you that simplified power planning. It's going to give you a 34 to 40% faster deployment because you're not waiting for electrical to be able to come through. Cable clutter becomes much, much easier in terms of just routing cables, everything else, and the installer time advantages. Network testers, cable certification, PoE power measurement, all tools that you want to be able to come in and grab better dedicated design software, quoting out your job. Take a look at what Jason Sayen's doing as well. And then for things like this with manufacturer technical support or installed webinars, all really important. So at the end of the day, what are we talking about? We're talking about modern networks that are multi-gig, factoring in that PoE++ capability, standardized network architecture, utilizing the correct tools, and embracing strategies. Where can you put this into place today? One of the big things when we just talk about residential consumer grade, one of my two go-to benchmark SKUs, part of the everyday 562133. This is a 6-port, 2.5 gig PoE++ switch that's out and does a really nice job. I'm a bigger fan of 562140. This is a 9-port, 2.5 gig PoE++ switch. I like this because it's a multitude of access points, IP cameras, and setting up some smaller AV zones that are out there. We've talked ad nauseum about PoE++. Let me talk to you though a little bit more about where do you go in the commercial environment. 561761 is a 24-port, and this would ideally support some of that commercial work that you're out there doing. But if you have a need, if you're getting into a security heavy install, you're getting into a commercial building, and you want just the absolute Darstuka, Mesamundo, every amount of power that you could throw at it, I'd love for you to take a look at our flagship. This is 561969. This is a 48 port. It's a level 2 plus managed PoE with 10 gig uplinks. Big, 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 big fan of this. So again, if we're just working within that edge layer, 2.5 gig switching with PoE++, 562133 or 562140, even 562263 does a great job. If you're more concerned on that 10 gig, 562201 or 562218, then the core layer right now, we're dealing with servers, NVRs, firewalls, 561761, 561969. The beauty is that if you go to the Intellinet Network Solution webpage, type any of those SKU numbers in, I've got a single spec sheet that can get into all of this. It's going to allow you for faster quoting, everything else. We've got a variety of different SKUs, that are out there. One of the big ones that Don and I were just talking about, 562263, it's a 2.5 gig edge switch with 10 gig uplinks. Dealing with power to zoom camera or Panda zoom cameras, also does a really, really nice job. And then 10 gig aggregation. We talked ad nauseum about all of these that are out there. The whole job here is to be able to talk about designing smarter, installing faster, and scaling cleanly. There is a place today for 2.5 gig, and that place is today. It's a part of every install that you're getting ready to do. And then taking a look at just the device to device connection, that's where your 10 gig is going to come into play in a big, big, big way. I'm going to turn this over now to Don, who's going to talk to you about a variety of different SKUs.
Awesome. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Intellinet TAA products here, and let me just pull up the PowerPoint, and I'll just get you guys all set up in just 1 second. Here we go. Awesome. Okay. So really what we're talking about here is we're talking about our multi-gig switches. So we have two that are wonderful. We're looking at our 2.5G and then also our 5G. So we go right here. Okay. And let's go to okay, in just 1 second, we're having a little mini review for you guys
Or slide 37, Don, is where you're trying to
with
go.
37. Okay.
Slide 37.
Let me just hop right to that one. Okay, sorry about that. All right, perfect. Okay, so we're talking today about these 2.5G and 10G switches. So these are two of our newer products that we're bringing out. We talked a lot about how these are great for networking and how they're great for kind of those core switches. This morning we talked about core switches as when we're thinking about switches, we're kind of thinking about like bus stops or train stops. In college, we got to go and travel across Europe, and one of the really interesting things was each town had its own little train stop. Okay, so these 10G are more like Grand Central Station. They're a regional train stop, or they're directing traffic across our network. When we start talking about 2.5G or 1G, now we're talking about smaller stops, almost like small towns, villages, things like that. So, why do we need 2.5G? We really need 2.5G for a couple great reasons. Our Wi Fi 6 and 7 access points. If we talked a little bit about this morning, those our a network attached storage or a NAS, something like Jellyfin. If we have a 2.5G switch, then that Jellyfin install is going to work a lot faster. We double that speed. If we use a 10G, then we're doing a lot faster. So we have these both, the 2.5s in both PoE and non-PoE models. So for these 2.5G switches, we really want to talk about the high power. So these can be up to 60 watts per port. We have the 9 port that's 60 watts per port. And then we also have some where there's high power PoE ports. The 6 port version has high power PoE plus plus with up to 60 watts per port. So all of these 2.5G switches are great for pan tilt zoom cameras. They're great for those higher capacity cameras that need more data. And they're also excellent for Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 7 because once we get into Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 7, we're starting to have two things that completely change. Our speeds are faster than a gigabit, and we're starting to need more than 20 watts for these PoE access points. So when we test here at the office, we have a PoE access point that we use. And I know from years of using that device, it was a discontinued Intellinet. And from using that one, it takes about 5 watts. Now, when we're talking about a Wi Fi 6, Wi Fi 7, and Pete was even talking to us today about at one of the big conferences in Vegas, they're coming out with Wi Fi 8. So once we get into these faster Wi Fi speeds, we need more PoE power. So that's why these are just huge and great tools. So these last two here, the 562096 has that big difference of that SFP port. And once we look at this, we notice, hey, this is one we have fiber. We can connect it to other switches. But really, what's important about this is we could connect it to two different network segments. So using fiber. So say we're at a college or university. I know from doing IT at the college where I studied, we had a uplink from the community college all the way to the main campus at UF. And that one fiber cable was about 8 to 10 kilometers. So we'd be able to connect with a switch like this straight to another facility. And we kind of had that all over town. We would have fiber connections around Gainesville. The University of Florida has an agriculture campus. That's really one thing that these SFP and fiber enabled switches are really great for IT for universities, IT for schools, because now you have this ability to connect to another part of your network infrastructure. And you can do that with just one cable. And you can do that for much longer than a PoE cable. So with PoE, we can get for data, we could probably get, we want to say like um, 250 feet or 100 meters. Realistically, about 80 meters. And once we get past that, we want to make sure there's another switch. Now, with these fiber enabled switches, we can go much further than that. And we can go kilometers, we can go miles, and we can really extend our network. So we also have some great products that are DAC cables. So with these SFP plus ports, you can also plug in a DAC cable. So DAC cable, we have some 10Gs. So you plug in a 10G DAC cable into an SFP plus port, and now you have this uplink that's connected between two switches. The cool thing about DAC cables is they are copper cables, but you really don't have to do anything to make them connect between two switches. So they are direct access copper, direct attached copper. And the main difference between them and fiber is there's no training needed. They're kind of just like little, they look like those old video game cartridges. You just slide them into one switch and then the other. And now you have a high speed link without needing to get a fiber tech to make a short fiber connection between two switches. So our main reason for these 10G and 2.5G switches is the network. So there's two really big reasons you would need a 10G switch or a 2.5G. You're going to need these for communicating between switches, where we kind of want to like, when you think about how websites work, you have load balancers. So if you ever have looked at how a website works, we have like load balancers, we have servers, we have tools that essentially make the traffic spread out between different places. When we're thinking about a network, we do that with switches. So our 10G switches would kind of spread out the load of traffic going through the network and spread it out to different and be able to kind of make higher, faster speeds and more throughput or more bandwidth. So 10G switches are great for networking. We're getting 10G connections between devices. The use case a lot of companies need this for are NAS or network attached servers. So every company has one of these. We have one in the office that is for all of our marketing, all of our sales data. Luckily, we have two because we just had one that would be a huge security vulnerability. So what we do with those is we would have a 10G switch connected, and then users that are frequently with the switch, frequently using that server, can connect at a 10G port. So when we're talking about our connection directly to the server room, well, we'd have a 10G switch connecting to the server room, and then the users nearby that are frequently using it, they can be connected that way. So with a 10G switch, you have faster speeds, especially if you're using a fiber uplink, or you have fiber optic business internet. So a couple of years back, 10G speeds were almost like when we're talking about, oh, just more than 1 gig. Um, a lot of places, unless you were self-hosting, they didn't need it. Now this is becoming more common, especially when um, some companies are still like self-hosting apps. A lot of that has moved to the cloud. But with a 10G switch, what will never really move to the cloud in an intelligent company is their own data. So the sales information, the HR paperwork, you really don't want all of that in the cloud. Almost every company is going to kind of push back on that and say, hey, when we design networks, that is the vault. Whenever we go in and design a network or design a security plan for a network, for a company, we're saying, okay, where's your vault? What is the most important things you have? And a lot of times they want to keep that either on premise or they want to keep that offsite stored securely. So a network attached server is a great way to do that. And you need these 10G or 2.5G switches to communicate with these servers at faster speeds. So the last product on here is kind of a teaser of what we're going to talk about in February, where we're talking about our TAA products and then our TAA PoE injectors. We have these PoE injectors and media converters. So first, a media converter is, excuse me, a device that allows us to take fiber and turn it back into copper. So we were talking about connecting from that two campuses on one college. So UF is a great example. At the University of Florida, there's the agriculture school. That's about 2 miles from the main campus. So maybe at the agricultural school, we need a direct link from the professor's offices to some servers that are stored at the library for like paperwork or for access to the library. Maybe somebody needs a direct link like that. Well, we could do that with a media converter. We wouldn't need to get an additional switch, put it at that second campus location. We could use the media converter, connect the two sites with fiber. We plug in the copper side, then plug that back into a switch. So essentially, what we do is we use these basically like bridges. We have one on each side. We have fiber in between, or if you have fiber on one switch but not the other, you can use these. And what they do is they let you connect fiber optic networks to copper or Ethernet networks. So these are really great, and they're great to extend your network. The other thing that we have, these are kind of newer for us, but they're great products. If you ever look at like the inside of a gas station pump, these are all over. These are industrial PoE injectors. And these industrial ones, what makes them different is that green Phoenix connector. So you can plug these directly into a Meanwell power supply, and you have a different way really to power them, and they're more stable, and they also are a little bit better at regulating the power. They're they're essentially like the pickup trucks is how we describe them. These are the pickup trucks as switches. Okay. So then we just have like two more slides. I'm going to turn it back over to Pete. And what we have here is we're talking about our 2.5G switch breakdown. On our YouTube channel, we've kind of gone over a lot of some of these topics. And if you guys have any questions, you can get to me directly at 888-844-2636. And on our YouTube channel, we're starting to focus on tech support issues. We have some videos like over here. Whoops. Like over here, we have this 2.5G switch video, and we're just going to hop to this one real quick. Here we go. We have the changing the default IP of a switch, and then we have logging into a switch. So these two videos here were made because, and we also have these in Spanish, because users were having issues changing that management IP of their switches. So once they got with a managed service provider or the MSP customers we have, once they're like, oh, I need this software in this guy's computer on this guy's network, well, we can't without changing the IP. So once we see a roadblock like that, if there's something where you're like, this is kind of difficult, there's got to be an easier way. Let us know in support. We'll be happy to make a video about it. We'll also be happy to discuss with product management saying, hey, we need to talk to the factory team. We need to talk with manufacturing. The next batch of these switches really would benefit from these and these upgrades. Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Pete, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the great business systems that we have in place here at Intellinet.
Don, you're sharing right now.
Yep, I'm going to turn off the screen share, and then it's back to you, Pete. Thank you so much.
Good stuff. So let me scroll down. I'm not sure if you guys are seeing, but let's scroll down and get right back over to that. All right, Don, thank you so much, for taking us through. I always appreciate the deeper skews. Want to encourage you to join the Pro Performance Program. This gives you an opportunity to grow with us. Things like what we're doing here, offering quality products and support. And then more importantly, if there's SKUs that we're doing that are not doing, let us know. We want to broaden the market reach, want to bring products that you guys are looking for. And then one of the big things that we're trying to do is things like these monthly webinars, cross promotions, bi-monthly direct dealer engagements, everything else that's out there. Our overall job right now is to focus on you, the core installer, and people that are supporting the core installers, and that's key SKUs. essential products, making sure that they're in stock and then supporting, we're enhancing, the overall efficiency that's out there. We're going to do this through a variety of different ways. And if you have your phone out or need to get your phone out, it's a perfect opportunity. We're going to hit you with a bunch of QR codes to take you through that will give you some great opportunities. So let's get to snapping. Here's the Performance Pro program. This is a QR code that allows you to sign up, take advantage of all the really great things that we offer: professional recognition, additional community support, some installation tips, product updates, and network building, all really core concepts that are out there. You heard Don give a great number. It's 1-888-844-2636. I've actually now got this down almost like a radio DJ, but 1-888-844-2636, and it's 100% dealer focused that's out there. We'd love for you to engage with us. Shoot this QR code with your phone. The next time you're out in the field taking or doing an installation, we'd love to give you some publicity on a great rack mount, on really good cabling, or just, wow, can you believe how, how high or how messy or just wherever you're at, we'd love to support. Other ways to engage with us. We've got some great social media capabilities right now: Facebook, LinkedIn, our dedicated website that does a really, really great job for that, as well as just dedicated engagement across the board. One of the big things though, that I'm proud of working with Don on is right here, just our YouTube channel. It's grown by leaps and bounds. Done a really nice job. You've done a really, really nice job. And Raul, at some point you're going to be watching this and reviewing. Thank you too for all the support that you've done. Again, just a quick call out for the tech support number that's out there. When it comes to support, though, we do a really great job. I meant to fix this screen, but dedicated sales support, you can call us at 1-813-855-0550 or send us an email at sales@ic.com. Why choose Intellinet? The big reason why you're here hopefully got answered. We talked a little bit about 2.5 gig and 10 gig, but at the end of the day, you're getting reliable products, high quality PoE switches, networking equipment, data center solutions, and professional installation gear. You're getting some of the best support that I've seen in the industry, expert support with a dedicated hotline. And these products are focused on the areas that we're installing in today, whether it's CD or security or AV. You've got all of that capability. So come back, join us in February. We're going to do a deep dive on TAA. Don and I are already talking about bringing some additional stuff. You guys will tell me right now in the chat box, should we do something for cybersecurity? I'm a big thumbs up. Yes, Don, to count me in. But we're going to do a deep dive on TAA and getting a little bit showing some priority on where you can grab some additional jobs and being a little bit safer that's out there. When we talk about being safe, though, that's one hand on the ladder, one hand for you that's out there. But part of that is just making sure that you've got those simple, easy to deploy networks, the simple, repeatable, and reliable networks that are out there. Be good to you, be good to your crew that's out there, and I can't wait to see you in February. Be safe, everybody. Be good to yourselves, and we'll see you again in February. Thank you again, Don. Bye, everybody.